force out a Pokemon over on Javier's side of the field. And yes, that is two choice specs, Miraidon. Yes, we're going to have to see how they match up into each other. They're both Terra Fairy.
The hidden star of this matchup, in my opinion, though, or well, it's not that hidden, actually, if you've played this a couple of times, but you gotta watch out at home for that Iron Treads. It is specifically on those teams for this Miraidon Mirror matchup and should give an edge to Victor if he's able to get it into position perfectly. So Javier will kind of fight a little bit of an uphill battle. I would definitely say that Victor has the matchup, both the matchup experience and the matchup advantage because of this Iron Treads. And it's a question of whether Javier can find a way to outmaneuver, because the one problem that Iron Treads has is that, well, it is choice banded, so it can only use one type of move. It will want to go for ground type moves, but that also makes it a little bit predictable. And if you can get rid of it in some way, should be the highest priority for Javier for sure. But yeah, that's really what you need to do. And Victor, on the other hand, going here with an Iron Hands and Iron Treads lead right away. Super happy that Miraidon is on the other side of the field, setting up Electric Chain for him.
The Ogerpon is threatening the Iron Treads with super effective damage here. You do have an active Fake Out to be able to prevent it from moving for a turn. Another reason why Iron Treads is so nice is that even if the Miraidon goes for its Fairy Terrestrialization, then you have your Steel-type moves that can hit it for super effective.
Or are you going to switch in for Rigoraph to try and block the Fake Out and then kind of just bait your opponent into going for a ground-type attack? And it looks like that is exactly what Javier wants to do, blocking the Fake Out with Rigoraph to give his Ogerpon a free turn to knock out Iron Treads with Ivy Cutchel. Yeah,
Armor Tail preventing all priority moves. Fake Out would have meant that the Ogerpon would have flinched, but High Horsepower is also going to miss onto the Rigoraph. And here comes that big super effective Ivy Cutchel. Is it going to be a KO to start the round? Yes, it is! Iron Treads, that convincing answer into Javier's Miraidon is already down.
Yeah, that's a big KO, and Victor retaliates with Drain Punch on Ogerpon, doing a ton of damage thanks to the boost that Iron Hands is getting from Quark Drive under the electric terrain. But yeah, Victor really would have liked, of course, that high horsepower to connect. It is only 95% accurate, but yeah, those 5%, they can come to hurt you in the moments where you really don't want that to happen. And now has to make a decision. Do you want to bring in Rigoraph and potentially pivot into a more like Trick Room type of scenario? One thing that is important in these mirror matchups as well is how do Miraidons match up in terms of speed.
Yeah.
If you have the slower Miraidon, it might be favorable for you to set up Trick Room, even if it helps some of the other Pokemon on your opponent's team. Because, yeah, as long as you get into a spot where their Miraidon is forced on the field, it is choice specs, cannot go for Protect, and then you can bring in your own Miraidon. But no, it looks like Victor instead wants to go with Miraidon right away and deal out a ton of damage before potentially set up Trick Room later.
Well, Miraidon is certainly the biggest threat on the field right now, especially with Javier's not there at all. A big Electro Drift, but then, of course, you could just switch out the Rigoraph and your Miraidon back in if you are Javier. Ogerpon has followed me as well, yeah, and that would soak up some electric damage nicely, although it's still very much boosted by Hadron Engine and Specs and the Electric Terrain. How much is this Volt Switch going to do? It's going to be easy enough to secure the knockout onto Javier's Ogerpon. So at least the redirection option is down now. Just really curious to see how Victor's going to manage this match up without the Pokemon that's been designed to counter it in the Iron Treads.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that high horsepower would have connected with Rigoraph on turn 1, then now potentially Iron Hands could have maybe even gotten a knockout on it. Though, of course, with the Electric Seed, Rigoraph can take physical attacks quite nicely, but it can also attack, doing a ton of damage here with that Psychic and also getting a special defense drop, which could be important.
At least with the Drain Punch, you're recovering a little bit of HP there. You can see how well, though, the Iron Hand takes the Psychic, holding the Assault Vest, bolstering its special defenses. So both trainers here have lost a Pokemon. It's going to be Javier's Miraidon rejoining the field. That's nice and safely in the back for Victor. I mean, in this situation, it's not threatened with too much damage, Marcus.
It absolutely is not. And yeah, Miraidon, you could try and go for a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam potentially. Maybe even power it up with Helping Hand. That would do a ton of damage to Iron Hands and Rigoraph. But at the same time, maybe if Victor is confident that Rigoraph will make it through the turn and that his Miraidon is slower than Javier's, then this would be a nice time to try and set up Trick Room.
Yeah.
Because after getting rid of Ogerpon, positioning Iron Hands and Miraidon into Trick Room, that could be huge for him.
Well, Terra Fairy will be coming out from Javier's Miraidon here. So that's it. That's the terrestrialization option spent. It's going to be a Fairy type for the rest of the game. There is that helping hand. It could well be that Terra Fairy boosted Dazzling Gleam of which you spoke, Marcus. Here it comes. How much damage is it going to do? It's connecting down onto both the Iron Hands and the Frigoroth. It's going to knock out the Iron Hands. It's going to bring that Frigoroth down so low.
Yeah, that special defense drop from Psychic earlier might be the deciding factor. Victor did set up Trick Room, but he can never get into that Iron Hands and Miraidon position that I was talking about in this game because, Iron Hands just went down. Now, we will get confirmation about which of the Miraidons will be moving first under Trick Room. But other than that, it looks like Javier has managed to find a way to deal with that Iron Treads and now definitely has the HP advantage, still has one more Pokemon in the back. So the only thing that Victor has going for him is that Trick Room right now.
Yeah, but we don't even know if that's going to be playing in his favor until we see who's going to be outspeeding who. But if Victor's Miraidon does outspeed the Pokemon on Javier's side of the field, then that is a win in Victor's favor. But still, with that unrevealed Pokemon over on Javier's side, it would be really useful for Victor to try and be able to bait that out, get it onto the field, just to see how Javier was approaching this game, what they were thinking. Sidekick, good for a decent chunk of damage into Miraidon, about a quarter, as Foul Play, super effective, easily enough to secure the knockout onto Victor's Frigoroth here, the critical hit not mattering. And now it all comes down to this. Which of these Miraidon will be acting first? Is the Trick Room going to be benefiting Victor or Javier? Yes, it is. Okay, so Electro Drift. Now you don't resist it if you're Javier's Miraidon. It's going to be enough to secure the knockout. Miraidon, if there's one Pokemon that can turn this around for Victor, it will be that one. Javier's own Miraidon is going back to the shed, and now Frigoroth will be accompanied by this final Pokemon.
If this was like a Whimsicott or an Urshifu, then maybe there's a chance. But with Iron Hands, I think that's just a little bit too difficult for Miraidon to take down. It is locked into Electro Drift. Cannot really damage that Assault Vest Iron Hands too much. Victor knows that as well. Well, he got confirmation that Miraidon on his end is a little bit slower and therefore moving first under Trick Room. There's nothing you can do against that Iron Hands. And Javier will take game one.
There's a chance that those Miraidon were speed time. We only saw the one speed interaction, but I wouldn't be surprised if this team over that Victor is running has been trained to underspeed the team that we know so well that Javier is running, just so you have that confirmation. You're probably more likely to send out Trick Room because you don't have Tailwind over on Victor's team. For me, Mark, that whole game really came down to the first turn where Iron Treads was immediately removed from the field. Victor just made the wrong call there. The Iron Treads was so vulnerable, predicting that Javier wasn't going to target it or what have you, but heading into game two, I feel like that's the crucial piece for Victor. Yeah,
it was a nice little trap, I think, that Javier has laid there, because, Iron Treads is a Pokemon that I know a lot of Miraidon players, it was giving them a lot of headaches. Because once it was shown, I think at Worlds by Gabriel Agadi for the first time on the highest competitive level, that Iron Treads can be a Pokemon that really can shift this Miraidon matchup. Miraidon, with this composition Javier is running, was known to not having any bad matchups. So naturally, whenever something was surfacing where people were saying, oh, maybe this has a good matchup into it, then the Miraidon players that were, using this particular team of Miraidon, they were trying to understand, okay, how can we deal with this Pokemon? And it looks like Javier has found this little trap. Lead off with the Ogerpon and the Miraidon, invite a Fake Out, but then you actually switch into Farigiraf and knock out the Iron Hands right away. That worked out perfectly in game one, and I wonder if he has more traps like that prepared, because, you cannot bank on that working again against a player of Victor's caliber.
Yeah, well, with Javier's caliber as well, these trainers will probably have a go-to game two lead as well, even if they've won, and a different one if they've lost, to try and counter what their opponent might be thinking. It's time to find out, trainers. Victor has to win this game to be able to stay in contention for day two. It's going to be Ogerpon and Whimsicott being led. There it is again, the Iron Treads paired alongside Miraidon for Victor.
Yeah, it's tournament life on the line. Victor has to win this game, and if Victor wants to finally claim a big title at a major, if he wants to do it here in his home country in Spain, he has to lock in and come up with a way to play around Javier's traps. Miraidon and Iron Treads is a different kind of lead approach. Now, this time around, it's Victor who's leading the Miraidon, and Javier isn't. That is quite interesting. But we're seeing Whimsicott over on Javier's side. So that's another way how you can deal with Iron Treads. You could go for a Tailwind and Ivy Cudgel into the Iron Treads right away. But Incineroar is another one of those Pokemon that if you brought it to the battle, could really do well against this combination that Javier has right now.
Has Incineroar been brought? It seems like Nox. It was Iron Hands in the back for Victor, but it was the Tailwind being opted for by the Whimsicott here. The Ogerpon's going to be very speedy. Is Javier going to go for the Ivy Cudgel into that slot? Yes, it is. Predicting that Victor is going to think that Javier wouldn't go for the same play, but that's exactly what I was going to. Draco Meteor is going to miss onto the Ogerpon. Yeah, the high horsepower missing game one, and this time those meteors raining down from the skies, Draconian style, they're not going to be connecting.
Yeah, Victor just cannot catch a break. Well, Draco Meteor for sure would have done a ton of damage, maybe even just knocked out Ogerpon right away. Of course, it's a little bit of a tricky spot, even if you get the KO on Ogerpon, because then potentially Miraidon comes in. Miraidon goes for Terra Fairy, and then all of a sudden you're staring down two Fairy-type Pokemon. That's also a little bit, I wouldn't call it like a trap, but it's a trade that can be poisonous in a way. So even if this Draco Meteor didn't hit, like, it doesn't have to be the end of the game, necessarily.
It wasn't a crucial miss, and certainly Victor wasn't looking too disappointed by the miss there, actually, even though Whimsicott now gets to set up a light screen, so Ogerpon will be taking a Draco Meteor so much better. Ivy Cudgel just being selected for again into the Frigoroth. Still no critical hit to speak of. Draco Meteor connects this time. Is it going to be enough through the light screen for the knockout? No, it's not. How is the Frigoroth going to follow up, though? Is it going to be able to remove that piece from the field? No. You were speaking of tricks up their sleeve earlier, Marcus, and Frigoroth has plenty up those little hooves. Time for a Trick Room.
Yeah, I think this is actually not that bad for Victor, because even though he missed the Draco Meteor and now the second one landed but didn't KO because of light screen that could now be set up, he managed to set up Trick Room and Miraidon is not on the field. So now he has this one turn where you can reposition, you can bring in Iron Hands, you can potentially go for Foul Play or Psychic. Yeah, I think, is he running both?
I think, yeah, Foul Play and Psychic, yeah.
No, only the Psychic for Victor.
Oh, for Victor, yeah,
like
sorry,
both of them. Yeah. Very similar team. So you go for Psychic into the Ogerpon, which did go for Spiky Shield, but that's fine. But now you have a very powerful combination under Trick Room, as long as Frigoroth makes it through the turn, which it should. And now you have Heavy Slam into the Whimsicott and Psychic into the Ogerpon, which would do guaranteed damage. So you can wonder, is there something that is even stronger? Is there maybe a defensive play my opponent could make? Like, for example, they could switch out into the Miraidon. So do you want a low kick there, maybe? Instead, though, follow me. Ogerpon will go down to the Semi-Slam, and yeah, it's first knockout here going to Victor this game.
Of course, Whimsicott would have been the intended target of that Heavy Slam being super effective, but follow me, and Iron Hands moving first under the Trick Room at reverse speed conditions means that it's being redirected into the Ogerpon. That's Frigoroth going to go down for Victor here. You could argue it's done its job, it's set up the Trick Room. Is it going to be enough? Is it going to pave the way for Victor to take us to a game 3? Well, Miraidon has decided to race out of the Velodrome right around onto the field.
And now you have two Pokemon holding a choice item, and also that Iron Hands with Assault with no Protect. You cannot bring in the Iron Treads whatsoever, because yeah, it's not designed to work inside of Trick Room. So you're at a point of the game where you want to kind of maneuver around and maybe stall out your own Trick Room in a way, and then bring in Iron Treads at the perfect point in time. Yeah, Miraidon hitting the field, pretty much uncontested. I mean, could be susceptible to a fake out this turn, but that would leave Iron Hands open. I still like the position that Victor has played himself in.
Yeah, and once you get Javier's Miraidon locked on the field there, hasn't gone for its Terrestrialization, you know what move it's going to lock into. It makes the Iron Treads' time so much smoother as well. It would resist Dragon-type moves and Fairy-type moves, take 0 damage from Electric-type moves. So we'll have to see if Victor's able to get that Iron Treads in the right position, but Whimsicott is going to flutter its way back to Javier. Time for Miraidon to come onto the field. Pretty vulnerable in this position. Let's see if he's going to be able to get out of this turn unscathed. Time for our first Sparkles trainers. Time to Terra.
Time to Terra indeed. And it's Iron Hands going for the Terra Water to try and take those Dazzling Gleams just a little bit better. most likely.
Yeah, perhaps. Which is it going to be? It's going to be over on Javier's side of the field, and it's going to be the responding Terror as well, coming out from Victor. So you know that the Miraidon remains a Dragon Electric type for the rest of the game. High horsepower from Iron Treads is looking real nice in the back. Victor's decided to terrestrialize the Miraidon into the Fairy type. If Draco Meteor is heading into that slot on a future turn, it's not going to be doing any damage. Big low kick going into the Iron Hands over on Javier's. An equally big low kick, given it's based on weight. Okay, a big Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam. This Miraidon is not going to appreciate taking that one bit. It is going to hang on. Both of the health bars over on Javier's side of the field are dwindling, and those Trick Room turns are wearing off as well.
Yeah, you need to know your damage calculations exactly here as Javier. With the light screen, both Miraidon and Iron Hands make it through this turn, and we've seen that Iron Hands over on Javier's side was moving first in Trick Room. So now this is the last turn of Trick Room. However, I believe that without the Quark Drive boost, low kick might not be quite enough. Actually, might have been a speed high. Heavy slam though coming out. Oh, expecting a switch there, and low kick is enough to knock out. Wow, that was a big opportunity for Victor to go for another move, but making a hard read. However, Miraidon pretty much confirmed not to be slower, gets the knockout on Miraidon. Just barely not getting the knockout on Iron Hands, but this should be enough because there's still an Iron Treads waiting in the back, and Iron Hands over on Javier's side is so low.
Iron Treads are coming in fresh on the back saying, what did I miss? And it's in a really good position right now. Yeah, you've got Terra Water on the Iron Hands, but you're threatening Steel type damage with an Iron Head into the Whimsicott here. Just big offense, and of course Miraidon can keep dishing out these Dazzling Gleams. So really well adapted by Victor there. Not only conserving the Iron Treads, but also being able to set up the Trick Room earlier on in the game. It was really crucial for Victor to learn in that first game that their Miraidon undersped Javier's, so Trick Room was the way to go.
And someone at home might now wonder, oh, why is Javier forfeiting? He had Whimsicott and Iron Hands. Maybe he could have gone for like a Prankster Tailwind, get the speed control on his side, and then do something maybe with a Drain Punch. Is that? No, unfortunately that's not really possible, because the Iron Hands that Javier and presumably also Victor are running, they're probably going to be trained to be like very, very slow to take full advantage of Trick Room turns, and they're just not designed to outspeed anything under Tailwind. So even with the Tailwind up, would have been slower than both the Iron Treads and the Miraidon, most likely.
Yeah, and the Iron Hands can only target one thing at a time. The same with the Whimsicott. So it all comes down to this, Marcus. This couldn't be a more thrilling way to end our first day of action here at the Seville Special Championships. Victor's done it, got it back to a one-on-one. Can Victor convert now, go through to a victory, claim their spot in day two, potentially go ahead and claim their first major title? Or is Javier going to throw a spanner in the works and also go ahead, potentially pave the way for that convincing title here at the Seville Special Championships? What are you thinking, Marcus, in the heads of these trainers now approaching this final game?
Yeah, I think in this second game we saw how much the matchup might be in Victor's favor, even with that Draco Meteor miss. Again, I think it kind of helped him in some way, and I'm glad that I wasn't proven wrong there by that analysis. But it's something where, like, you got to wonder. First game, we saw Javier bring out the Miraidon, Victor didn't. Second game, it was the other way around. So now I wonder, do you want to bring Miraidon at all, or do you want to try and wait to see what is your opponent doing with their Miraidon? Let them set up the electric terrain for your Pokemon, and then maybe bring it in at a later point in time. But yeah, we could see a situation where neither of them actually leads off with Miraidon, or it could also be one where both of them have it. I think it's really, really tough. Like, both of these teams are built in a way that well, of course it matters, like which Pokemon are in the lead, but they're so flexibly built that they can usually play out of situations, and it's not that bad if something goes wrong. I think both of them might want to stick to the same for Pokemon that they have been bringing. I don't really see any big reasons for either of them to switch it up. I guess actually we did see Javier now go with the Whimsicott over the Farigiraf. I think that's something that he might be able to switch up, but yeah, Victor probably wants to go with the same four.
But it's not going to be Ogerpon in the lead, so this is a switch up from the previous two games here. So the Iron Treads is a lot safer than it was in previous games. Could this be paving the way for a clean sweep for Victor's Iron Treads? We'll have to tread that path and find out, trainers, as our trainers lock in their moves. Javier wanting to go for that Tailwind and just fast offense mode, but then you can Terra Fairy your Miraidon as well.
Yeah, this is really big for Victor. This is a spot that he wants to see. He probably wants to go for the Terra Dazzling Gleam and High Horsepower into Miraidon. That pretty much covers for almost everything. I think maybe a Light Screen and Terra into Fairy. That might be enough for Javier to take this attacks. But then, yeah, there's always the threat, oh, what if the Iron Treads predicts this and goes for a Steel-type move? What if the Miraidon goes for an Electro-type move? So going for this Terrestrialization is risky, but it seems like that is what Javier is doing. Let's see if it's the Tailwind or the Light Screen to follow this up.
After another Terrestrialization, so the very first turn of our final game at the Seville Special Championships on day 1, we're gonna pull that Terrestrialization button already. It's going to be a Terra Fairy Miraidon apiece for these two trainers. Is that going to be a Terra that pays dividends for them? Whimsicott setting up the Tailwind. This Miraidon is feeling more amped up than ever before over on Javier's side. Here comes the Dazzling Gleam, outspeeding. Iron Treads take it pretty comfortably. Miraidon down to about half HP as well. High Horsepower connects into the Miraidon. No longer super effective with a follow-up Dazzling Gleam into the Miraidon and into the Whimsicott. There's no Light Screen this turn, trainers. Is going to be the Miraidon, Javier's restricted Pokemon, Javier's Terra option. Back to the bike shed.
Yeah, I gotta wonder, with Light Screen, maybe could have been enough to take that Dazzling Gleam, but yeah, it's so tricky. Miraidons tend to be trained in various different ways, so you can never be sure how strong your opponent's Miraidon is actually gonna be. Now though, with that Tailwind setup, and both Iron Treads and Miraidon already significantly weakened, this might be a spot for Javier to try and come back now under Tailwind. Urshifu making the first appearance here in this series. Ogerpon would have been great, I guess, to get the knockout as well, but yeah, Urshifu can also get the knockout.
Yeah, Surging Strikes, I mean, the special attack drop from the Moonblast there not mattering too much, given that Miraidon over on Victor's side is down and out as well. But Victor has sort of staggered it, getting the KO this turn as opposed to the previous turn like Javier did. This Iron Tread's pretty vulnerable on the field, but Urshifu was targeting the Miraidon. Is Iron Tread's going to be able to capitalize? Here comes that High Horsepower into the Urshifu. Yeah, it's brought down to about a third of its HP. It's certainly looking vulnerable. I wonder what that final Pokemon is in the back for Javier. I would not be surprised at all if it is the Ogerpon.
Yeah, for sure. And now this is the point of the battle where Victor will want to pivot a little bit more into that Trick Room mode. Tailwind is still up for his opponent, and there is Taunt available on the Urshifu as well, so let's not forget about that. That would be one way to shut down a potential Trick Room, and that is something that both players have to consider. At the same time, Iron Treads, yeah, definitely wouldn't go down to Moonblast, so if it is Taunt coming out from Urshifu, potentially we could see a double knockout coming out from Victor with like Psychic and High Horsepower. At the same time, though, it seems kind of safe going for Trick Room and High Horsepower because the Urshifu cannot cover both. You can't go for Taunt as well as knocking out the Iron Treads. So now the question is, does Victor believe that going for this kind of like neutral play where you will get something no matter what happens will be enough to take home the game?
Surging Strikes connects into the Iron Treads, in fact. So yeah, the Frigoroth is safe to set up a Trick Room if that is what Victor selected. Or did it go for the damage? Did it go for a super effective Psychic into Javier's Urshifu? Is going to be focusing its mind and, yeah, channeling all that Psychic energy right down to claim the knockout onto Javier's Urshifu. It's certainly a Pokemon you want to remove sooner rather than later, given that it can hit through those Protects. Now we're going to have to reveal what the final Pokemon for both these trainers is. Iron Hands coming out for Victor and for Frigoroth here for Javier, and that Tailwind is still up.
Yeah, and with that, all the damage potential for Javier is gone. You don't have your big hitters anymore. Instead, Frigoroth, well, you have Psychic, which can chip down Iron Hands, but with that Assault Vest, Iron Hands just probably ready to have a field day. There's no Trick Room set up, and you cannot really support it right now with a Fake Out, but that's fine. So, I think if you're Victor, you're feeling really good seeing Frigoroth as the final Pokemon here over on Javier's side. And you can go for Low Kick potentially and set up Trick Room. There's nothing really stopping you from doing that. And the Iron Hands, yeah, really not taking that much damage. However, of course, both Whimsicott and Frigoroth have moves that are super effective, so it's not over just yet.
Frigoroth connecting down that Psyche into Whimsicott. That will be enough to secure the knockout there. So now it's just the battle of the long necks and the big hands. Javier just down to this Frigoroth. How much is Low Kick going to do in this situation? Okay, so it brings down about a third of its HP gone. It's looking like Victor is slowly but surely securing their spot in day 2.
Or are we going to see the lone Farigiraf that could?
Yeah.
Psychic, if it's enough to get the knockout here with a critical hit, just barely makes it through the turn. Because, yeah, let's not forget that Victor's Farigiraf only has Psychic. There's no foul play. And, yeah, that just doesn't do that much damage. But with low kick, yeah, now it looks like Farigiraf definitely in range of just a couple more attacks coming out of Victor's Farigiraf. And, yeah, Victor keeping his tournament life alive, keeping his hopes and dreams alive of finally winning a major, taking this Game 3.
Congratulations, Victor Medina, and huge congratulations to Javier as well. It's always so thrilling to see a trainer come back from having lost the first game and then win the next two. The mental fortitude that you need to secure the plays that you need to make.